I'm going to show you some of the touchscreen capabilities of the new RICOH THETA X camera. This is a new 360 camera that can take 11K images and 5.7K video. A big feature is this beautiful touchscreen it has on the front panel. On the right-hand side of the screen, I'm mirroring the THETA X screen with some special software. To give you a better view of the touchscreen, I'm also using a mouse to control the touchscreen instead of my finger. Once you take the picture, you can immediately see the picture on the camera body itself. So remember, the right-hand view is the actual camera touchscreen. I'm just mirroring the camera touchscreen. So when I'm using my mouse here, you'd be using your finger. I'm next going to press the gear icon. This will show you the video settings. Again, this is the camera body, so you don't need a mobile phone. This is all, you can set it all just directly from the camera now. On the camera body, you can also set the bit rate. The lower the bit rate, the smaller the file size. And if you upload this thing to YouTube, YouTube is going to cut down the bit rate anyway, even after you upload it. So using this interface, you are limited to the 25-minute video. You can probably get longer if you use a plugin. And also you can probably bump up the frame rate, the video to 8K. At least you'll be able to get it at 8K 10 FPS if you use some other software. But the body does have the most common settings. You can trigger the shutter button with a black kind of half circle right below the OLED, or you can configure it to tap on the OLED, which will trigger the shutter button, or you could use one of the many APIs available and trigger this thing over Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or the USB cable. When you're in still image mode, the settings are different than when you're in video. So if you click on the gear, there's a different set of settings that's available to you. Unlike the Z1, the THETA X does not have DNG or RAW format. You would need to get the Z1 if you want those, but it has a bunch of nifty features, such as this ability to auto-detect the main object in the scene or detect a face depending on how you configure it. The output is going to be JPEG. It does have the ability to take burst HDR, but there's no DNG. You can see that it did detect me. I got close to the camera for the test, and it automatically finds the human in the picture and will center it if you have these settings configured. The actual pixels of the image are not changed. It's the centering is done by adding some information to the metadata of the actual image. So the image itself is not actually edited by the camera internal software. I'm next going to swipe from the right corner to the left. This reveals the plugin screen. I'm having a little problem because I'm using a mouse, but when you're actually using the camera, you can just swipe it right over. The plugin screen, you can launch the plugins directly from the camera body, and because it has this beautiful touchscreen, you can make some pretty complex plugin interfaces. This is just a demo to show that you can do fairly complex animations right on the touchscreen. Again, swiping from the right to the left with your finger. I'm using a mouse for the demo, and you can brand the plugin with your company brand. This is quite nice, right? If you're using it for staff or you want to get your brand out there, and you can configure the plugin to do exactly what you want to do. The camera itself runs Android 10 internally with quite a fast processor and GPU hardware acceleration, so it's super flexible. From the plugin interface right directly on the camera body, you can also access the store. So when I try to access the store, it knows that I'm not connected to internet. So I'm going to connect to my office router here. So the camera can function like a phone. Remember, this is the camera screen you're looking at. And from the camera body itself, you can go directly to the plugin store. You don't have to hassle with busting out your mobile phone or your desktop. There's no USB cable. Your clients can directly access the plugin that you make, or you can, if you're a photographer, you can just do this yourself and go to the plugin store and directly install the plugin directly from the camera. It's just an awesome new feature of the RICOH THETA X. Directly from the camera, I've installed the wireless live streaming plugin, and I swiped to the right again, and right here is the configuration of the wireless live streaming plugin from the RICOH team. And you can set it up right here and configure it and connect and start streaming to YouTube directly from your camera. I'm not going to do it to make this video a bit shorter, but you could configure the stream key right here. This camera is great. So let's go back to the main interface of the camera, and I'm going to swipe from the top down, which will open up another configuration screen. So right now I'm in still image mode of the camera, and then I'm struggling a bit, but when you're actually using the camera, it's a lot easier than using a mouse here. I'm going to enable the touch screen so I can take a picture with that touch screen. So that icon indicates that when I tap on the touch screen, I can now trigger the shutter. This is just another way for you to fine-tune your workflow. You can there's a physical button, there's a touch screen, there's the API, USB, Wi-Fi, or Bluetooth API. You can reset the settings directly from this screen. The camera, to me, is so much easier to use because of this humongous touch screen that's right on the camera body. And there's a lot of the settings are available right here. You could change the auto power off, the sleep mode. I mean, some of these settings were fairly buried in the mobile app, in my humble opinion. But it's pretty easy to get it with a touchscreen. In my opinion, the interface of the touchscreen, because you can swipe from all four directions, is actually better than the mobile app. This is just my personal opinion. There's also different settings to disable the OLED, which does realistically generate heat, and it will drain the battery much faster if you have, for example, Wi-Fi enabled, which is generating heat, consuming power. So if you turn the OLED off, the battery will last longer. You can change the battery. It's a removable battery. So there's many different shooting settings here, and it's a lot more convenient, in my opinion, than busting out the mobile app and changing it to, for example, continuous shooting. Continuous shooting will take up to 20 shots in just a couple seconds. There's two different configurations, 8 and 20. I think the 11K is maxed out at 8, but you take it and it takes all 8 shots in, I'm not sure exactly how long, but let's say like maybe 5 or 6 seconds. And again, I didn't time it, but you can see for yourself. I'm just letting the video run here. It took 8 shots. I think this is 11K. Continuous shooting. It's I guess I would call it burst shooting, but RICOH's calling it continuous shooting. So as long as we know what the terminology is, we could figure out like what this functionality is. And what it does, it takes 8 11K shots or up to 20 5.5K image shots very rapidly in a row. So with this configuration, it's going to take all the settings. Each camera exposure is going to be exactly the same for each of these 20 shots in this continuous shooting mode. But there's also other settings for bracket settings where you could configure the shots independently or individually. So with one button press, it just took 20 individual shots. This is the same functionality as, or similar functionality to, mobile phones. You have that motion capture where, maybe the person's blinking or maybe the bird has flown away or something, but you can kind of scroll back and forth to see which was the best shot that was taken. And I did not fine tune this at all. So in this demo, the shots are going to be a bit blurry because I didn't prep the shot ahead of time. I'm rapidly moving my hands in front of the camera, which is why my hands look blurry. Since the continuous shooting is new, people may not realize that it takes 8 or 20 shots within maybe, let's say, 5 or 6 seconds. This is different than the older setting of interval shooting, which was always here. Interval shooting will take a number up to 200, but I guess you could, if you use the API, you can make it longer of shots. So for a short demo, we'll take 4 shots in sequence. So each of these shots is a normal still image. Thanks to the fast processor, the Theta X can take an 11K image at 3 seconds and a 5K image at roughly 2 seconds. So the 5.5K image, it can take it in sequence at roughly 2 seconds. So I believe this is the fastest CPU that RICOH has ever put into a Theta camera. I believe the CPU is actually faster than the Z1, which takes a 6.7K JPEG image in 3 seconds. In interval shooting, all the light exposure, everything is going to be the same. So that INT is the interval shooting. And we only took 4 for our test shot. You could take up to 200. I think if you use the API, you could take several thousand or more. Maybe just let it run continuously as long as you delete the images from the camera or the storage card at some point. So it's popular for time lapse. So another newish setting is this multi-bracket shooting that takes it in, I'm going to say burst. That's not what RICOH calls it, but it takes all the brackets. Let's say that there's 8 brackets. It's going to take it within maybe 5 seconds. So this is quite different behavior than it was maybe a year ago. The Z1, the firmware was updated, so it does have this like very rapid bracketing. By rapid bracketing, I mean that it can take different exposures for, let's say, VFX, or if you want to create an HDR file, or you want to merge several images together to get different light exposures. Basically making your own kind of HDR style shot. So you could take up to, I think, 13 brackets. I'm not gonna set all 13 brackets here, just to keep the tutorial or this demo a little bit shorter. What you do is you set the exposure and the ISO, which I'm not gonna set it up fully. Just you set it one time, and then when you press the shutter, it will take all the brackets. This has become an increasingly popular use of the camera. You can also use the API. There's other mobile apps that you can also use. If you're a developer, you can also write your own app to set the brackets from within the plugin so that you won't need a mobile phone. This is used to merge all the brackets together, so all the different frames with different exposures and ISO values together into a single file. So you can either use it for VFX, where you have a ton of light image or light data there, or merge it together with something like Photoshop for a fantastic looking image.